Nehemia had said to me at the border, you just go ahead and I'll meet you. And I was like, I'm not going anywhere without you. You don't go, I don't go. And if we don't get out of here, then it's God's will. We stay in. Look, I was not that upset about staying in Israel. Quite frankly, there's a lot of good that can be done there. There were a lot of people that I could help. I felt like this was something that, that I could do to help. But it was a very difficult time. And I believe that God wanted us here so that we could, there's a lot of things that we can do here. I'm going to be doing interviews with my sister-in-laws because they continue to go help people. Listen, what the Israeli people are doing here, from the 8-year-olds all the way up to the adults, they are consistently saying, how can I help the people that have been hurt?
This morning, there was a rocket attack on Jerusalem. And we get messages on my family WhatsApp group, and everyone in Jerusalem is running into the bomb shelters. Tell them what happened with Eden. Eden is my 9-year-old niece.
So Eden is, she's Meira's daughter. Meira is a wonderful, she's the one that translated for me the horrific things that these people were telling me.
My sister, not the 9-year-old.
No, Meira is her sister.
My sister.
It's Meira's daughter. And Eden is adorable. She's 9-year-old. She's the baby of the family. So, you think she's maybe a little bit spoiled, and maybe she is. But when these rockets went off, they were outside playing, and Eden grabbed the 2-year-old neighbor who was right next to her, picked her up, and ran her into the bomb shelter. That she didn't run to her mommy crying that there was a siren or whatever. She took the child that was closest to her, that she could pick up, and she went in, and Eden is afraid in there. When Eden's afraid in there, she cries. I know she does because Meira has talked to me about it. But this is what she did. And I got to tell you, when Nehemia's nephews found out they were going to the front, they didn't hesitate. They didn't hesitate to go. As a matter of fact, one of his nephews was in Italy on vacation, and all he could think about was, how can I get home to my unit? How can I get home? Because if we don't protect the families, who will? If we don't protect our people, who will? And that's their attitude. Guys, you're looking at young people that do that. The people that were killed, those special units that were killed at the very first day, those couple of hundred guys, all of those are between 18 and 21 years old. They were like their special forces. They've been training. That's what they do. They go to the army. Nehemia served in the army there. It's a part of their life. And with Eden, for her just to reach down and grab the 2-year-old because that's all she could do. That's their attitude. What can I do?
So look, I mean, here, what happened on Black Sabbath, October 7th, isn't new in history. It's happened for over 1,000 years. It happened in Babi Yar, where the the SS rounded up Jews and lined them up and shot them. It's no different than what happened a little over a week ago in Kibbutz Be'eri and Kfar Aza and in other places where they literally went door to door and murdered entire families, burned babies, raped women. It's really no different. What's different is this time we have young men and women like my nephews who are willing to go and defend the people of Israel, who we didn't have that in Babi Yar. We didn't have that in the Ponari Forest. We didn't have that at Auschwitz. We didn't have the ability to defend ourselves. Now the world is telling us, don't defend yourselves. Hamas is using, here's what's really happening. Hamas is using the civilians of Gaza as human shields. Today, there was reported about a convoy of innocent Palestinian civilians who were fleeing from the conflict zone in Gaza, and Hamas set off an explosion, killing 70 Muslim Arabs, their own people, because they want them up north where they can use them as human shields.
And then they twisted it and said that we had attacked them, that Israel had attacked them. That's the thing that really is so upsetting here, guys. It's the fact that they don't really want Israel to protect themselves. They're like, okay, that's enough. There's enough of a response here. They don't understand that Israel is
fighting.
And
they meaning the international community.
Yes. They're fighting for their very existence. They're fighting to live in their own country that belongs to them.
What Israel is doing right now in Gaza is not revenge for the atrocity of the 1,300 innocent people who were murdered on that Black Sabbath. It's to prevent the next one. If we don't do anything, then this will happen on a regular basis. They'll say, okay, we can do this. We can get away with it. We're going to do it again and again and again. So if we don't do something to stop them, Israel cannot exist, which is their objective. I mean, they openly say we want to kill every Jew all over the world. Hamas openly says that.
Now, Nehemia, you mentioned something interesting a second ago. You said, your nephews want to help protect the people of Israel. And I think a lot of what the international community doesn't get, especially in the U.S. here, you got these pro-Palestinian groups and these, it's like, well, wait a minute. This isn't about Palestinian versus Jew. There's Arabs in Israel. There are Christians there are Muslims working alongside with Jews every day. So it's not just Jews in danger. I mean, is it fair to say there's even a ton of Muslim people who are in danger too from people who are supposedly from their clan?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, talk about the 70 people they just murdered who were fleeing the conflict zone, their own people. But I was talking with Ted before we started the broadcast, and he mentioned how there were 20 towns and villages up in northern Israel that were being evacuated along the border of Israel with Lebanon, because Lebanon wants to escalate, Hezbollah specifically, not Lebanon. They want to escalate an attack. Now, one of those towns, I looked at the list, one of those towns is called Rajal. Rajal is a very unique town. It is not just Arab. It is not just Muslim. It is a Shiite Muslim town in northern Israel. And Rajar had to be evacuated because Hezbollah, who are Shiites, are firing rockets that could land on Rajar and kill the people of Rajar. And Israel cares enough, not just about the Jewish inhabitants of Israel, not just about the Arab and Muslim and Christian inhabitants, but all inhabitants, all residents of Israel, all citizens and residents of Israel. Israel cares about human life. We even care about the civilians in Gaza. I had these people saying to me, well, what do you expect the Arabs to do after 75 years of the way they live in Gaza? Do you know what Israel does to the people of Gaza? We give them water. You can see propaganda videos of Hamas bragging how they dig up pipes and turn those water pipes into rockets. And so because they dig up their own water pipes, we have to give them water. We give them electricity. We give them other essentials. One of the people who survived these attacks, he says, I can't understand why they did this. We used to drive to the border all the time and pick up Palestinian, Gazan women and children and sick old men, and we drive them to the hospitals in Israel. I mean, and look, this is not Gaza isn't ruled by Israel. It hasn't been ruled by Israel since 2005, when the last Israelis pulled out of Gaza. Hamas is the ones who rule Gaza. So the fact that we go and we bring their civilians to our hospitals, we don't have to do that any more than someone in, I don't know, in South Africa has to drive to the border of Lesotho and take someone from Lesotho to their hospitals. Go make your own hospitals in Lesotho if you want to have hospitals. But why do we do that? Because we have compassion for innocent people who are living under an oppressive regime, and that oppressive regime is the Hamas regime. And so we've taken them to our hospitals, we've given them medical care, and they respond to us by slaughtering women and children and babies and old people. I mean, this entire family's wiped out.
Scott, you know what happens when if a terrorist attacks someone, and the terrorist is wounded and the person that they attacked is wounded, you know what happens? They take them both to the hospital. They could be right next to each other in the bed. Israel is a moral compass in so many ways. They really are. And they live out their lives in that way. We see that. And I feel like they think that we're weak because, that's kind of weak thing. But that's it there. And Nehemia, tell them the story about the study that was done about when they talk about 75 years after what you guys have done. They always...
Yeah, so there was a study done by this Israeli woman who was like a radical leftist and wanted to show how all the atrocities committed by the Israeli army. So she went into the records. She was a Hebrew speaker. She's an Israeli, and she went through the records of the IDF looking for all the examples of where rogue Israeli soldiers raped Arab women. And she couldn't find any. And her conclusion was the Israeli army is so racist that they won't even rape the Arab women. They're so dehumanizing to Arab women, they won't even rape them. That was her conclusion. Now, yeah, I mean, look, there are always going to be bad people who do bad things in any kind of situation. And if you had showed me some rogue Israeli soldier who did that, I would say, let's prosecute that person. That's a fundamentally different from that. Look, they found this book. It was being carried by one of the terrorists who was killed on the Black Sabbath, October 7th. And it was a book in Arabic that described how you invade Israel and what you do. And one of the things it said there is you murder anybody who resists the kidnapping, whether they're man, woman, child, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. And they killed several dozen Arabs in this attack. They did not just kill Jews, they killed people from Thailand who had been working in fields, who had come from abject poverty and found that they could get ahead in life by working for a few years in Israel in agriculture, and then they could go back to Thailand and build themselves a house that would take them 20 years in Thailand to save for. So they came over to get a better life, and some of them were murdered by these terrorists. So it was a planned attack. And in the book, it talks about how you should torture the people you kidnap, using electric shock, all kinds of like vicious, horrific things. This is, this was their plan. This wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. This was something they planned and trained for 2 years.